Hello and welcome to the Saturday night stream of the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I am your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull. And since I managed my first, as far as I can remember, ever 5,000 point result on a single round of GeoGuessr yesterday, I want to see if we can just kind of keep on with that energy. And then later on, we're going to look at PragerU's advice on how to beat the woke left. I'm sure it will be earth-shattering. Okay, I immediately am feeling like this might be Paris or possibly Berlin. Paris. Rue Félicien David, 16e arrondissement. Okay. See, this is where I wish I actually really knew the arrondissement a bit better. These numbered systems always cause me problems. Chile's got the same thing with the regions, but they've also got names for the regions, so I just remember them that way. And then Vienna also has districts numbered in certain ways, numbered districts as well, and I have the hardest time with that. But okay, so 16e arrondissement. Let's see if we can get some kind of landmark. A nice image quality, though. C'est où le 16e? Oh, okay, let's see. 19e. Montagne de Montagne. Belleville. Okay, okay, c'est Banguelier, Romainville. 17e. Tabarnak. C'est où le 16e? 13e. Ah, mon tabarnak. C'est où les 16e? 15, 13, 14. Ah, c'est... Okay. Here we are, le 16e. Rue du Ranelagh. There's a street named after the district of Dublin that has what I would have to say from my experience is the best Italian restaurant in all of Ireland. Now, how the hell did that happen? There's got to be a story there. I mean, maybe it's just a twinning thing. That's just such a random thing. Okay, we need David. Quoi? Avenue Perrichon. Okay, Avenue Perrichon will do. Rue Nicolas, rue de la Pompe, Creuse, Poincaré. Eugène Manuel, Monceau, Latache, Square de Yorktown. Saint-Didier. Musée de la Contrefaçon. Museum of Forgeries and Counterfeiting. Okay. Next time I'm in Paris, whatever the hell that is, I really have to check that out. Non solo pizza. They have things other than pizzas, but they won't tell you what. You have to go in and find out. Voici, Kleber, Vernis. Okay. Singer. There's even a tube station, a metro station called Ranelagh. Wonder how they pronounce it there. Debut, Vosh. Vosh, not Vosh. Osvaldo Cruz. Avenue Perrichon. Okay. Par Pont Grenelle. Okay, there's a park nearby called Pont Grenelle. God, they've named a lot of things after Ranelagh. Fucking hell. What's the deal there? Somebody must have really liked the steps of Rome. Hello, Kleber, président Wilson. Fuck, le président Wilson. À dire la vérité, rue Benjamin Franklin. Schaeffer, Petrarch. Louis David. Wait again, is that the name? Square du Trocadéro. Rue de la Tour, rue Condambert. Okay. Need a cross street here. This is Rue des Gars. Okay, we got des Gars. And Avenue, already forgotten it. Félicien David. Okay, so Degas and Félicien David. Hey, Mask of the Red Death, how are you tonight? We've found ourselves here in a section of Paris where everything is named after... Yeah, I thought so too for a second. But it's actually a section of Paris where, like, half of the place names refer to a district of South Dublin that I mostly know is the place to go for the best Italian food in Ireland. We're looking for Rue Degas or Lucien David, and I'm having very little luck. Augier, Sando, Garetti, Nicolo, Janin. Other than that, all we know for sure is that it is in the 16th, the 16e arrondissement. But beyond it, Avenue Prud'hon! Huh. I wonder if there's an Avenue Bakunin around here as well. Henri Martin. Yeah, very doubtful, but I wouldn't have necessarily credited them having Prud'hon on there either, to be honest. Well, Ranelagh is Irish, and they've got that like 5 times in this area. Dufresnoy, Rue de Montevideo. Spontini. Faisanderie. Oh, come on. It's gotta be in here someplace. How am I nuts? It's only what Louis David. C'était pas ça. No, it's Lucien. Rue de la Tour. Rue de l'Assomption. Ah, Montmorency. That's a place in Montreal. Thiers? What's the deal with Thiers? Président Kennedy, ben mort. Thibon, Lecaille. Ankara, Frémier. Rue Letas. It's also the site, apparently, of a museum of forgeries, which... The name says nothing to me. Fill me in. Well, who's Adolphe Thiers? Vosh. In Chile, that is the Federación Obrera de Chile, a mutualist workers association that almost pulled off a revolution in the 1920s. Kepler, Euler, Iéna, Christophe Colomb. Fuck le président Wilson. Georges V. Oh. Oh, yes, well then fuck him too. Square Thomas Jefferson. Ah, hell. Okay. Getting sick of trying to find this fucking street. We're just going to say someplace in the 16e arrondissement. $1,000 yards, $49.97. Okay, well, how far? Okay. Fucking hell. That close was it? Okay. This immediately makes me feel... Yeah, okay, yes, this definitely looks like Britain to me. The non-aggression principle. God, I saw it. I was trying to come up with a joke there, and I didn't think of that one. St. Andrew's United Reformed Church. It's a Reformed church. They know they got up to some shit in the past, but they're Reformed now. Okay. And with a saltire crest. Could this be Scotland? Monumental Masons. I mean, yeah, I mean, we're definitely in Britain here. Yep, I mean, there's a Union Jack. Thinking I'll get... Yes. Craven Road. Reading. We're in Reading. Craven Road in Reading. Okay, we are not in Scotland after all. We are in Berkshire. Hey Andromeda, how are you doing? Basildon. The Museum Parthian climbing reading. Red Kangaroo. That's a name that we should be using. That should be the name of a communist group, the Red Kangaroo. Sort of cute, but we'll also punch you out. Okay, we're looking for Craven Road, and there's a Reformed church there, St. Andrews. Chumley Road. Wokingham. White Knights Road is right near Wokingham Road. That's somehow... There's something there and I just don't quite have it. Heath Road. Looking for Craven Road. Bitchworth Road. Beach Lane. White Knights Primary School. Buckland Screwfix. Screwfix would be a good name for a place where you just buy the replacement for something. How's my audio, by the way? Red Kangaroo Trampoline Park. Yes, but is it CWI or is it IBT? Weird balls. Oh, I think the game might have got knocked down. Gresham Way, Grasmere Ripley. Oh. Okay, what was the lull for? Was it for the gain getting knocked down, or my great joke about Red Kangaroo Trampoline Park? Cranberry Road, Battle Square. Curzon Street. You find lots of Curzon Streets in Britain. I think they're just dead namming Jadzia at this point. I mean, they've had plenty of time to update it. Culver Road, Crescent Road, Fox Hill Road, Blenheim Gardens, Red Rum Drive. White Gates, Chiltern Crescent, Wenzel's the Bakers. Okay, I need another street. There's got to be a cross street. No, it was like Red Row or something, and I just decided to take the piss. Oh, fuck off, tree. I needed to see that. NHS Trust Education Center and Library. There probably is a Red Rum Drive someplace in Britain. Royal Berkshire Hospital. Okay, that should be relatively visible on here. Royal Berkshire Hospital, there we go. Right by the Museum of English Rural Life. Yeah. To me, all Reading is the station that lets you know to get your stuff together because you're about to arrive in London. So I don't really have a whole lot of sense of the layout of the place. University of Reading. Candlejack? 449. Oh, wow. Last round was 49.97. 49.99. Candlejack? What is a Candlejack? Okay, this is definitely not England. Ah. Red Rum, I don't know. Oh, okay, yes. No, I was, a Shining reference. What is... Okay, I'm about to, like... totally out myself as completely unaware of something apparently one is supposed to know about, but what is Freakazoid? Is that a band? Is it a movie? Oh, okay, come on. We don't even... okay. Only 90s cartoon I really know would have been Animaniacs. The 90s, the main thing I watched was Japanese dubbed X-Files. Okay, there aren't even two lanes on here. I can't even tell which way you're supposed to drive on this. Slowly would be my guess. Come on, give me something here. Okay. That could mean that this is left hand, or it could also not mean that. But we got buildings coming up. And where there are buildings, there are often signs. Okay, a main street. This feels kind of Indonesian, Malaysian. Could also be Thai. Okay, it definitely is left-hand traffic. And that is Thai. Thailand drive on the left? Oh, wait a second. Let me have a closer look at that. Yeah, okay, definitely Thailand. Okay, goodbye Berkshire, hello Thailand. I mean... Annikomnayosi. Which is 381 miles. But did I get that right country at least? Yes. Somehow I had no idea, but I guess they were occupied for Britain for a while, so I guess that shouldn't be too surprising. La Mer, restaurant et grill. The Radisson. English signage, but very French names. No entry, private. Okay. Definitely someplace English speaking. I think that tells me that it's probably left-hand traffic. And if that didn't, this definitely does. Okay, let's back up on that. Let's catch up to this van and see what secrets it reveals to us. Bordeaux on beach. Okay, where is this? Okay, ocean view. Okay, it's on an ocean. It's left-hand traffic. Well, not entirely, but they did sort of accept general British suzerainty for a while in the 19th century in exchange for not being directly occupied. Yeah, that's possible. Also in exchange for showing them how to do railways. Because the king at the time was very much into railways. Figured with such a long country that it would probably be good to have something, a higher speed way of getting around. Yeah, it could be Australia. Somehow it doesn't entirely feel Australian. Discover our city today. Oh, wait, no. My City Org ZA. We are in South Africa. On a coastal city. Call the Transport Information Center. Discover our city. It would be nice if you're gonna say discover our city, if you could also, like, give the name of your fucking city. Okay, so someplace in South Africa that likes to make French Riviera references and is on the ocean. Stellenbosch, no, Gansbaai, Struisbaai, Jungsfontein, George, Kranshoek, Plettenberg, Nature's Valley. Nature's Valley sounds like a brand of spinach. Gamto's Mouth, Bergha. Bay World, Summerstrand, Kings Beach, Black Impala, Settlers Highway, in honor of Eric Sakai, I wouldn't wonder. Brighton Beach, Blue Water Beach, Ukura, Bowsclough, Kenton-on-Sea, Port Alfred, East London Airport is just a travel booking fail waiting to happen. I wonder how many people who thought they were like booking a flight to the original London and there was just a handy airport in the east of London discovered otherwise. Macambeni Bashi Togasi Indicana Tieni Coffee Bay. It's my kind of bay. Port Edward, Port Shepstone, Bluff. Northwood School, Umhlanga, Loti, la merde. Fontaine. Okay, we're Joma Cafe. Free Wi-Fi, RSA web. Pavilion Station. It's got to be something more specific on here. Pavilion Place. Gardens irrigated with borehole water. Okay, actually that immediately started to make me think Cape. Marseberg. Cow fish hook. Hey, welcome back. Glad to see you again. So I've been meaning to tell you, I told my sister about you, and she's interested in talking to you sometime if you're interested. Llandudno Beach. An actual Llandudno where you could probably swim. Llandudno, the original, is quite pretty, but the water is fucking freezing. Okay, at this point, I'm just going to guess someplace in the Cape because they've managed to find like a totally signless area. 7.8 miles. I was right. It was Cape Town. Which I got off of the fact that it made the reference to borehole water, because it's the only city I've specifically heard in South Africa that's on water restrictions. Northwest 4th Avenue. And how have you been? Okay, yeah, I'm thinking we're in New York. Soccer City, USA, that doesn't mean anything to me. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely someplace. I'm thinking it might even be New York, but it's the US, definitely. Yeah, not enough vertical landscape. Oh, that's Portland. 4th Avenue Northwest Portland? Is Portland Soccer City, USA, then? I had no idea. Fourth Avenue Southwest. Northwest. And would I be correct in saying that in Portland there's a Chinatown and it's not far from 4th Avenue Northwest? Broadway Cannabis Market? Shit. I need to get to Portland sometime. This whole situation would be so much more tolerable with weed. Oh, that's right. We got... That's right. You're from the Pacific Northwest. All I've seen of Portland, really, is Portland Railway Station, where we had like a 45-minute stopover on the train from Seattle to LA. 244 yards. Wow. Yeah. 4. That's another $49.99. That's two this go. Very cool. Always nice to be able to count on local knowledge. I'm now a rookie hiker. I can hike rookies. Level 10. Okay. And with that, Yeah, I mean, I think it was like 2015 that I was in Portland, which is to say at Portland Railway Station. I saw nothing. I saw basically nothing there. Other than that. What is Esparzas?
Hello, everybody.
Ah, donuts. There's no good donuts around here. I miss donuts. I would travel to Portland to get donuts. Oh. Oh, that's a pity then. Okay. LA does pretty well with it. I mean, minus the text bit. Oh, I remember the Voodoo Donuts unionization campaign. I remember stuff being shared about it. That's right. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the Wops. And that's almost a reasonable segue to this video I'm about to show you. Oh, holy shit, that's cool. Hey. Glad you enjoyed it. Powell's Books, filing that one away for next time I'm there. I love a good bookstore. And now we're going to find out how to beat the woke left. You see, PragerU, they've found our Konami code. They have figured out how to defeat the immortal science of Marx, Schumer, Pelosi thought. Oh, a huge bookstore where you could spend months? Fuck, I need to go to Portland now. That's my absolute favorite kind. There's one in a place, there's a town in Wales called Hay-on-Wye. And when the local industry disappeared, they decided to turn it into a town specializing in every kind of bookshop. And they have one called the Hay Cinema Bookshop, which is the size of a full, like, multiplex cinema. And it's nothing but thousands and thousands of books. I found the complete works of Shakespeare in Korean. Hey, that is time well spent.
And good evening. I am your host of the Readout, Joy and Read, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into critical race theory, but not the leftist opinions that I normally spout. Today we're going to have an anti-CRT.
Oh, she's doing a bit. This is what counts as a bit. I love how they've picked. I mean, for the emblem of the woke left, Joy Reid, the homophobic DNC dead ender. Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, definitely time much better spent than in school then. Good that you had a place like that to go to.
Advocate and researcher by the name of Christopher Rufo. Christopher, thank you.
This is the guy that you may remember a ridiculously bullshit intensive video with the dehumanizing title "What to Do About the Homeless" from PragerU from like last year sometime. Thought Slime did a send up of it that was very good, but this is the guy who wrote that thing. That's who's gonna tell us how to beat the woke left.
Thank you for being on the Readout tonight.
It's great to be with you, Joy.
Chris, first question for you. Why do you hate black people?
But you told me these were going to be softballs.
I know. This is how we get you on the show.
Okay. Well, this is all. Awkward now. Oh man.
Let's talk about critical race theory, Christopher. Can you even define what critical race theory is?
No.
Oh, this will be good. I have yet to hear right-wingers actually try to explain to actually provide a definition of it. Is everyone hearing the video okay, by the way? Do I need to bump that up?
I can't define it, but I do know it doesn't exist. But if it did exist, it should be in every public school in America.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, okay, so he's ducking that. Yeah, because it's like, they're the ones who have trouble defining it. Oh, good. Good to hear the volume is good. I mean, I think most people who are actually familiar with what CRT is could do a reasonable job defining it. It just does not. Yeah, of course it fucking exists. I mean, of course it exists. But if they actually were to lay down a definition, like to maybe use the actual definition of what it is, it would fuck up their entire campaign. So they have to pretend there's no definition and it doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is something, I mean, my familiarity with it was actually, in, like, critical legal studies, that I found, I mean, that was my introduction, was in the context of critical legal studies.
Thank you so much for admitting that, Christopher. I didn't have to pull teeth and interrupt you this entire interview just to get you to say that. I really appreciate it. What's the next move?
What I love is that their satire here, it's just so subtle. It doesn't hit you over the head with it. It kind of just works towards the point. It's just really... Yeah, of course it's working. I mean... Yeah, and that's why they have to pretend, you know, that's why they refuse to give any kind of definition of it, because the minute you define it, it's obviously some shit that you practically only encounter in law school, and probably only in elective coursework.
For you with critical race theory, Christopher?
Oh, you know, it's to invent it. That's still one of the things I'm working on.
Yes.
To plant evidence in all of these public schools and then to report on it. In the most...
You know, Jesus, this is like, okay. So... Yeah, I mean, what they've done is their CRT is just being factually accurate about history. That's their whole CRT. That's the whole thing that they're complaining about. Just sort of acknowledging shit that is staring us in the face.
Fallacious and inflammatory way possible. So that parents...
See, the reason this is funny is because he's saying it ironically, but it's exactly what he actually is doing and what he is paid to do. See, what he's doing, this technique, this is called doing a Vosh. It's where you use an ironic tone to give an accurate description of shit that you are in fact doing. And the idea is that by saying it ironically... Yeah, or also the way, like, the cryptocurrency people, they like to just sort of, just say, yeah, it's a scam. You know, and that proves that it's not a scam because they said it in a sarcastic way. I mean, Jesus, this is, like, you'd think this guy is from one of the best funded right-wing think tanks. I believe it's the Manhattan Institute. You'd think that a guy like this would prepare a little bit better on something like this so that it could, I mean, this is like the best they've got. That's impressive. You'd think I'd expect more.
Who also don't know anything about critical race theory can be fake mad about it all over the country.
Wow. Chris.
You mean the one with Grifty the coin? I mean Connie the coin, the crypto land? Hey, Jay, yeah, that was Cryptoland. Or, as I called it, Trapped on an Island with Grifty the Coin. Because I had just watched the Jenny Nicholson's thing on Trapped on an Island with Josh Hutcherson again. I like her. Hey, JH, have you got Skype or anything like that? My sister's not on social media, but she's on Skype. Yeah, it is, except the production values are actually kind of better.
Christopher, I must say I'm very impressed with the hundreds of curriculums that you have faked, the videos of parents going to school boards that you have faked. You've really hired tremendous crisis actors, and you've really created a fake movement across the nation, so I'm very proud of you.
That's right.
Except they haven't even done that. See, you could almost respect the hustle a little bit if they had managed to come up with some fake evidence of this post-grad level theory being taught anywhere in U.S. schools, but they haven't. They just sort of call random things critical race theory and call it a day, because they know that people that they're trying to reach out to don't give a shit whether it's true or not for the most part.
I mean, the moon landing,
Yes.
Bigfoot, critical race theory, these are all things that are fake and definitely not real at all.
And
Wow, yeah, I mean, he's so fucking funny. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. This is like, apparently, this is like their comedy. This is
ladies
the
and gentlemen,
comedy of oil billionaires.
welcome to Will and Amla Live. Will's here as well, although he could not play Joyanne Reed. I don't think it made quite sense.
I very much could have played Joy.
He's got the hair. He's got the hair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really?
Do you have a John Oliver,
Not-
Will?
You could do the John Oliver.
Oh, let's give it a
Oh
shot.
God, please don't have him try to do an English accent, please. That's gonna be painful. Yeah, the primary season's coming up, and plus they just kind of want to kill trans people. They're fucking sadistic bastards.
I'm John Oliver.
Oh, wow.
Talking about Chris Rufo.
Oh, amazing.
Oh fucking hell! Don't do that, please. Your normal accent is painful enough.
Crocodile Dundee.
Crocodile Dundee. Yeah, yeah, mate.
That's close enough for government work,
Right
I think. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, so we have Chris Rufo on the show today. Welcome to the actual
Great to be
show.
with you. Great to be with you.
We're going to be going through, really, his highlight reel of angry leftists coming after him, all the different corporations.
Oh, we're gonna. Okay, this is gonna be good. This is better than I thought. I don't preview these things for the most part before I put them on. I just kind of look at the title and hope that it's going to be as promising. Okay. Well, okay, are you on Twitter at all? I just figure I don't want you to like dox yourself on my chat or anything like that, but if you want to send contact information to me that I could pass on to my sister, then I'm sure she would like that, because she was really quite excited when I told her about you.
Schools that he has exposed through his work and research on critical race theory. And we have a special announcement at the very end of the show that I'm sure, of all people, Joyanne Reed is going to love the most.
Well, so it must be homophobic, because that's kind of Joyanne Reed's big thing, that and claiming that time-traveling hackers posted homophobic things on her personal blog. Hello, Phoenix. And yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, in an English accent and an Australian accent, I mean, both of them are already oversimplifications, because Australia's got a number of different accents, and Britain has hundreds of fucking different accents. There are cities, including London, for example, where the accent changes from one transit zone to the next.
So let's stick around for that. Chris, you were recently attacked by one Mr. John Oliver, and I'm sure you've seen this a multitude of times now.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've seen it, and you just told me just before we started that it's got 5.
He looked a lot more... He used to have a goatee, and I have to say, he looked a lot more serious with that. Now he just looks like some sort of, like, fart boy dickhead.
5 million views. It's really an amazing thing. First episode of his new season, it's a 28-minute essentially like a profile of my work.
Yes.
With the kind of MSNBC style talking points interlaced into it.
What, you mean pointing out how much of your stuff is just an absolute lie?
But I'll tell you what, a lot of these...
I mean, see, the thing about Chris Rufo is he's not actually a very good liar. I mean, these think tank people, the whole point of these think tank people is that they're supposed to be able to lie well with footnotes. He lies badly with footnotes. Like, if you watch the Thoughtsline takedown, all Thoughtsline does, all Mildred does, is go through this dickhead's own citations, he does look like a burb. And it just points out that they say literally the exact opposite of what Chris Rufo claims they do. That's the whole thing. Like, he couldn't even just rely on tendentious sources. Oh, I love burbs.
Are great, because the reality is that the more people hear about critical race theory, the more they talk about it, the more they reject it.
Right.
And so a lot of these...
Oh, nice freeze frame of John Oliver there. It's like they caught him in mid-sneeze.
Pieces, I think...
Okay, so does this mean he's going to define, explain what critical race theories is?
I think ultimately Boomerang.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't think he scored any points on this one.
I
28
don't-
minutes.
It'll ultimately Boomerang, so wait, since you're the ones who started this bullshit, so it's going to come right back on you. Is that what you intended to say?
Yeah.
Always Boomerang. I mean,
Yeah.
we had the same thing with Samantha Bee with PragerU.
Okay.
She did a whole segment on PragerU. This was... Taylor, were you around for this?
I was like just.
I
before my
remember that
time.
a
Just
couple
before
years
you
ago.
started? Yeah. And she did like...
Okay, I'm going to tell you something. I haven't seen a post from it in a while. But there at least used to be. Maybe it still exists and it's just getting, pushed down in the algorithm. A Twitter account called Round Animals. And it posts actually quite adorable pictures.
like a segment about Dennis and him being fat and stuff, and did a segment about me being stupid. It was great. It was great. But the way that it works is that these people try to corner you or say something about you, and they can't actually refute the things you say.
Yeah.
So
Oh, you mean sort of like when you talk about critical race theory, but you refuse to provide a definition of what it is, because if you defined it inaccurately, people could point out that it's not actually what you say it is, and if you define it accurately, then it's obvious that none of what you're talking about actually is related to it. You mean sort of like that, right?
all it does is make it a boomerang, exactly like you said, that makes people come out of the...
Oh, yeah. I mean, nothing racist going on at PragerU in chat.
the shadows and say, wow, I actually support everything this guy's saying.
Yeah.
Because they didn't offer any sort of refute.
And you're elevating the debate on our terms, essentially.
Right.
I mean, they're playing defense on critical race theory, but that also then presupposes that we're playing offense.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
Which you are. I mean, you nobody was fucking talking about critical race theory. Nobody even fucking remembered. I hadn't heard of critical race theory in easily 15, 20 years before this whole fucking propaganda blitz started. I mean, I literally had not heard it mentioned. I hadn't been in a discussion of it. It had been ages, and then suddenly it was all over the place.
These maneuvers, I don't think are really persuasive to people, and we know from the polling data that parents of all racial backgrounds, a majority opposes it. And so...
Yeah, and how many of them do they even know? How many of them actually know what it is? So, polls, citation needed, incidentally, of course, show that after a propaganda blitz in which it's never actually stated what the hell critical race theory is, it's just we're constantly being told that it's somehow bad, say that a majority of the population thinks it's bad. That doesn't mean anything. That just means, first of all, I would love to see what their source is on that, because I have my doubts. But, I mean, other than that, if people say something is bad and they have never actually heard what the hell it is, that doesn't mean anything.
It's only, kind of the Acela corridor, kind of media, intellectual policy people who are really convinced that this is good, but normal, everyday parents...
which is why we were all... nice rail reference there, incidentally. Acela corridor. That's interestingly, the one Amtrak train in all of the U.S. that has a decent on-time arrival and departure record, according to Amtrak's own figures. And it just happens to be the only Amtrak train that runs on track that is dedicated to Amtrak and owned by Amtrak. So, I mean, that's a big win for the free market for Mr. Manhattan Institute there.
Every community in the country are saying, hey, wait a minute. Obviously, America has problems. America has a history of racial injustice. You know, we're not going to...
He can't even say racism.
Kind of a candy cane treatment of this where everything is great. But
the hell is a candy cane treatment? That sounds like some kind of enema.
The idea that you can say, no, everything is evil and wrong, and we should separate kids on the basis of race, that we should...
Who's saying that?
Be judging kids on the basis of their ancestry is not good. We don't want it. Nobody wants it, except for the John Olivers, and the Kim Crenshaws of the world.
Yeah, and before we get into this John Oliver video, I'm sure people are going to find this, and maybe there will be a few of you who do not know what...
See, the fact that he mentions Kimberly Crenshaw there shows that this fool actually... that's actually a bit of a cell phone there, because if he's even familiar with her, that suggests that he probably has actually read some of this shit. Which bit's a lie? There's so many things in this are a lie, but for him to even bring up Kim Crenshaw is actually not a great idea, considering that it actually would, if somebody searched that, it would lead directly to an actual discussion of what CRT is, since she's one of the really intellectual founders of that school of thought. And you'd see that it's absolutely nothing to do with anything that's going on in K-12. Yeah, nobody... Yeah, right, yeah. And of course, the Manhattan Institute totally doesn't want to judge kids on the basis of their ancestry, and they're totally... they definitely don't like segregation, which is why they're totally in favor of busing, except they're not. Of course not.
Critical race theory is. Can we first have you explain the leftist view and the view that John here purports of what critical race theory is versus what's actually happening in our schools and institutions?
Okay, so instead of just defining the leftist view of what critical race theory is, versus... Okay, that's cute. Because the leftist view, so that's the closest we're going to come to him actually attempting a definition, versus what's actually going on in our schools. So the idea is something approaching an actual definition of CRT versus the stuff that they bullshittically claim is CRT, except it's actually not. It's just not lying so much about history.
There's two kinds of definitions. There's the euphemism. The euphemism that they like to use is that critical race theory looks at race and racism as it's codified and practiced in American institutions, and interprets racially disproportionate outcomes as a function of embedded white supremacy. That's actually okay. That is a more honest definition than I would have expected from this guy. That's pretty acceptable. That seems about right, actually. That's true. Critical race theory does do that, but if you...
Wow, he acknowledges this. That actually... Okay, what's coming up? He said there's no way that he actually manages to continue this streak.
You actually read the literature, which is available. You can buy it on Amazon. You can look it up.
For example, give us an example. You're going to give us an example of one of these books?
And on the internet, you can read all the papers, most of them for free. You realize that critical...
Where? You can... Okay, where? We're trying to educate people about CRT, right, Chris? So where can you go and read the papers for free? Because last time I checked, most of that shit's on JSTOR, and JSTOR isn't free unless you have access to an institutional library, which, of course, he does.
Race theory is not just that, but actually goes a few steps further. Critical race theory, first of all, is an explicitly Marxist or neo-Marxist philosophy.
Okay, what the fuck is... Okay, neo-Marxist. First of all, that it's explicitly Marxist or neo-Marxist. First of all, what does explicitly neo-Marxist mean? Because the first time I ever even heard of neo-Marxism was Jordan fucking Peterson. Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Explicitly neo-Marxist. And also, plus, you just have to ask any Marxist around. None of them would agree with that. I mean, there's that meme where it's like, you have the tip of the iceberg and it's CRT, and then underneath it's Karl Marx's face. And this is supposed to be some sort of big gotcha, when, in fact, pretty much every Marxist I've seen posted says, actually didn't realize that it was supposed to be, like, a right-wing anti-CRT meme, because the whole Marxist critique of CRT is that it doesn't go deep enough into the structure of society, and that you actually do need to have put a class analysis in there in order to really explain a lot of the stuff.
They use Antonio Gramsci, the Italian communist theorist, as one of their touchstones, and then they take this this old Marxist class.
Yeah, except they don't exactly use. See, that's very cute, because again, yeah, you get a lot of Gramsci, but it's really, really specific stuff. It is easily the stuff that you could agree with from Gramsci without being even slightly inclined towards any kind of Marxism.
Conflict idea between oppressor and oppressed, which used to be, in economic terms, the bourgeoisie, the proletariat, upper class.
Used to be? That shit's still going on.
Lower class, 1%, 99%, whatever language you want to use. And they say, well, that really isn't what we're looking at. We're looking at oppressor and oppressed based on racial characteristics or racial history. And the solutions that
they can't. They got it completely wrong. It's not Gramsci. It's Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci.
Come up with are not, teaching honest history, which is another euphemism they like to use. Their solution.
No, it's not a euphemism. It's a different thing. You can teach honest history and have nothing to do with CRT. Because there's theory, and then there's just, well, yeah, that's true. Although I imagine some education was wasted on this guy. I mean, the Manhattan Institute, it isn't like the Hudson Institute. The Hudson Institute is sort of the party right-wing think tank. Where the Dan Quayles of the world end up after their usefulness has more or less worn out. But, yeah, see, the point is teaching honest... Seems like all the education was wasted on this guy. Yes, indeed, Andromeda, it does. Teaching honest history is just totally different thing. Because there's teaching facts, and then there's also looking at interpretations of those facts. And this is one of the things that annoys me so much about a lot of the pushback memes. Well, I was chopping up potatoes today, so I couldn't help thinking of him. You have these memes sort of pushing back against it, written by well-meaning liberals, and they actually sort of accept the idea that CRT and teaching honest history are in fact the same thing, and it's really helped these dickheads muddy the water, to be honest.
In their own work, don't have to take my word for it, is severely restrict the First Amendment, so that any speech that's deemed rape...
Oh, okay, you don't have to take your... So where are your fucking citations? Let me see this description. Have we got any citations here? No citations. So he's saying that there are... Okay, so there are citations out there. They're just, what is the word? Needed. The citations are needed.
Racist by the government. Or our expert class is no longer legal. Mm-hmm. So your podcast, sadly, if the critical race theorists were in charge, would be kind of gone.
She's black.
They don't. Yeah, that's not going to help you. Yeah, that's it. There's they have interpretations to dance around that one.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Can you give a fucking example? Can you quote somebody? I mean, when he lied about homeless people in that video, at the very least he lied with citation. Maybe that's exactly why he's not even providing any quotes or examples of anything. This is just like the lowest level of right-wing bullshit here.
Again, individual rights, property rights, all of these fundamental principles in American law, American constitutional jurisprudence, they say no. These are all fundamentally to maintain white racial domination. We can't have true justice unless we abolish private property, capitalism.
Yeah, like name me exactly one person who identifies themselves as an adherent of CRT primarily, and is arguing that we should right-click and save as on the means of production.
Individual rights and freedom of speech.
The way that you say this, I mean, when you're talking about racism and the white kids versus the black kids and this stuff, and then it goes deeper when you're talking exactly like this. I mean, it's like Alinsky's rule for radicals, like straight out of their textbook. And it's like, you're talking about property.
Oh, wow. First of all, what the fuck are these socks behind him? I mean, in the sort of shrine to racist marketing characters. Alinsky, yeah, God, they're gonna bring back fucking Alinsky. That was their whole thing. That and Francis Scott Piven under Obama when they were trying to claim that he was some sort of communist radical.
Property rights and free speech and things. That doesn't seem like it has really anything to do with racism in the grander picture or capital.
Yeah, well, except how property rights explicitly included the right to own and exploit slave labor, except for the bit where those property rights are on fucking stolen land, and the property rights of the indigenous population were never even seriously recognized. Yeah, I mean, I can see how that has absolutely nothing to do with racism.
Capitalism, dismantling capitalism. Do you think that when these people who are the institutors of this whole critical race theory nonsense in our
these people, could we have a name of one of them?
Society right now, do you think that the real goal is equality of race, or do you think that it really goes down to the Marxist ideals of power over people?
I think
the Marxist ideas of power over people, yes. Yeah, totally the Marxist ideals of power over people. That doesn't require a citation at all, because it's, of course, by definition.
I think it's both. And the critical race theory, the thing to know about it contextually is that it's a post-civil rights ideology. So in 1964 and 1965 with the Voting Rights Act, you have legal equality. So the promise in the Declaration, the promise of the 14th Amendment after the Civil War, was finally enshrined into law as a system of colorblind equality where each individual is protected regardless of race, gender, ancestry, etc.
Note that he mentioned the Voting Rights Act there, which has been utterly gutted at this point. So maybe that wasn't quite as definitive as he's saying.
But critical race theory, the fundamental turn is that they said this still hasn't provided substantive equality. So there are
well, it fucking hasn't. It obviously hasn't.
Still racial disparities, which is true. But the lesson that they draw, which I think is false, it's not a good conclusion, is that okay, we have equal rights, but we have unequal outcomes. Therefore, equal rights is insufficient. We need to actually have positive racial discrimination.
Yeah, that's not really exactly what people are saying. The point is that obviously, if the fucking disparities, if the racial injustices, if the oppression continues, despite the fact that some shit was written into law, that means that stuff wasn't actually effective. The equal rights that it supposedly was providing don't exist in any substantive way. There's a big difference between trying to address something substantively and they basically they call anything that tries to address the stuff substantively positive discrimination or whatever the fuck. but okay.
To forcibly put the thumb on the scale to gain equal outcomes by race at the end. So for them, I think truly, and I take them at their word, they really do want racial equality, which is a noble goal, but they don't think you can get there unless you get rid of capitalism, individual protection, private property, etc.
Yes, and I'm sure since this is just so axiomatic, you could just give us one name of one of these CRT mavens who's saying this. Like one.
Then you would never have equal races, because then you would have to bring another race down if you had to do that. I mean, bringing white people down in a sense. If you're saying, oh, these people, you're taking away the First Amendment to be able to say something, well, that means that they're going to take away white people's ability to say anything that might be considered offensive or racist in any sort of context. And you can never really have that type of equality in that type of system.
What? Okay, what the fuck did this... You see, he does so much better when he just sort of sits there and doesn't say anything. He's one of the... He's really a good example of, I don't really like the saying, but I think it kind of applies here. It's better to be silent and thought a fool than to remove all doubt by opening one's mouth. I don't really like that, but it kind of really applies to this fucking guy. Because that doesn't even make any sense. Because, first, I mean, leaving aside the obvious factual issue that, I mean, the reason Chris Rufo here has not gone and... quoted somebody saying we need to abolish the First Amendment or something like that, is that you really couldn't find any... If you found somebody who was explicitly saying that, they would be so fucking removed from the mainstream that they are trying to attack here that it would immediately discredit their argument. But if you were to say... but let's say but let's just for the sake of argument, you say, okay, we're getting rid of the First Amendment to the extent that it allows people to say racist shit. That's not, not something that I've heard anyone actually seriously advocate in U.S. politics. But let's say okay that you do that. That isn't bringing white people down. That is denying white people a fucking expression of superiority over everybody else. That's not the same fucking thing.
In broad terms, yes, but there's even more wrinkles than that, because it's not just bringing white people down. For example, Appalachian Americans. So are one of the poorest groups in the country. They're white. Nigerian Americans are obviously black. They're from Nigeria, and they're one of the richest groups. And then wealthier than all of them.
Okay, I'm very curious. Is this actually true? Okay. Okay. According to the... Okay, so this is from Aussie Magazine, which I've never... What the hell is Aussie? But in any case, one of the things that's mentioned on there is, okay, let me see. The Nigerian, as of 2015, the Nigerian American population was 376,000. That's out of 300 and, like, I think, what is it, 360, at this point, 330, 360 million? See, the thing is, when you have that small a population, it is really, really easy to distort those things. I mean, all you need is one fucking... If you have one billionaire in an ethnic group that only has like 376,000, that's already going to give them all a massive bump when you try to smooth that out into aggregates. That is such a ridiculous thing.
All of the major kind of 4 or 5 racial groups are Asian Americans. Are Asian Americans white? Are they non-white? Where do they fall into this? So when you actually look at the data in a more complex way, you realize, something like 7 out of the top 10 wealthiest ethnic groups in the United States are non-white. If you look at...
Not to mention, yes, Mask brings up a good point, not to mention the fact that U.S. immigration policy is heavily biased in favor of upper middle class immigrants to begin with. Yeah, in fact, I mean, you can jump pretty much every queue in the U.S. economic system. I mean, the U.S. immigration system, and not just the U.S., Western Europe too, if you just flash some cash. If you've got if you can show that you've got a 6-figure bank balance or something like that, you can shave years off of your waiting time for a green card. There are specific green cards, specific immigrant visas in the U.S. that are tailored for rich people. If you would fall within the top 10% by income in the U.S. if you were absorbed into the U.S. population, then you can basically jump every queue you want. So naturally, a primarily immigrant community is going to be distorted in that way if it's one that includes affluent people. And I mean, that's just sort of a given.
African descendants of slaves, it is truly a lower down the socioeconomic ladder for legitimate historical reasons and causes, which we should obviously try to rectify as our society.
Wait, okay. He just said that that the history of slavery has caused black people in the U.S. to end up at actually on the lower end of the socioeconomic pyramid, which is true, but the whole point of this anti-CRT bullshit, including what I've seen on when they talk about this shit on PragerU, is to deny that. And here he is, he just fucking gave the game away, because he just said, yeah, obviously we need to do something about that. Well, I mean, they have previously said that just acknowledging that the present socioeconomic status of the black population in the U.S. has anything to do with slavery and that something should be done is CRT. He just did a CRT by their own bullshit definition.
But this idea that you can reduce everyone to a very simple black-white dichotomy where you are by
which nobody's actually really saying.
Nature either oppressor or oppressed, it doesn't speak to people's real experience. When you actually go into the world and look at it in a real embodied way, it's more complex, it's messier. It's very difficult to say that, well, we should treat you this way because this is what you look like, and treat you this way because this is what you look like.
And we still are waiting for a citation on who's saying this.
In a multiracial country that's rapidly changing with Asians and Latinos, for example,
right.
and then affluent, highly educated immigrants from Africa, for example.
Well, yes, which is specifically because they are basically they are practically the only people who can legally immigrate from Africa. I mean, there's some countries that have, for example, countries on the visa waiver list that are subject to fewer immigration-related restrictions, and there are others that are subject to many more. And when you get into African countries, most of them get completely screwed over by U.S. immigration, and not just U.S. immigration, also European immigration law for the most part, even though U.S. immigration law is one of the most restrictive on the planet. Far fewer ways to get in than other immigration systems. In fact, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the U.S. is party to a number of treaties that provide for immigration benefits mutually for the citizens of the U.S. and the other signatory country, Germany, for example. And in all of those cases, they are non-mutual. The U.S. citizens are granted those immigration benefits, sometimes very substantial ones. U.S. citizens basically get to jump every queue when immigrating to Germany, for example, based on a treaty that says this is supposed to be mutual. If German citizens tried to avail themselves of the same standards that U.S. citizens in Germany get, they'd be deported. Well, I mean, if ICE actually gave a shit about deporting white people, which they almost never do, but I mean, yeah.
It becomes unwieldy, and the better system truly is to say, let's look at individuals rather than try to manage the different racial outcomes through these brute force policies.
Yeah, and I think
brute force policies such as oh yeah, I know. I mean, the U.S. has such a good record on honoring its international commitments, which is why there hasn't been a new NATO member since 1990.
I think, a city that got a shock with that was San Francisco, because they ousted 3 board members. I know you probably saw that in their education system, because they were pushing this sort of anti-meritocracy. Meritocracy is an extension of white supremacy. And when looking at the voting stats on that, it was Asian Americans who galvanized and said, no, we're not going to go with this. And they're often a forgotten group in much of these discussions.
Yeah, definitely.
And see, what I like is that they keep on talking about we need to be more complex. We need to look at this at a more granular level. And then you have, like, these categories like Asian Americans. That is such a fucking broad category. And not everybody that falls under that category is being treated remotely the same in the U.S. I mean, there's a huge difference between how U.S. society treats people of Korean or Japanese descent, for example, these days, and how people who are of Laotian or Cambodian or Vietnamese origins are treated. There are huge differences in that. So they're sitting here talking about, we need to recognize the complexities, and then they will do something like that. Well, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, talking about the Asian American community as if that was just one big monolith is just so absurd. But we are nearing 1 a.m. when I turn back into a pumpkin, or seagull, as the case may be. Maybe a seagull pumpkin. And so I'm going to bid you all good night. And JH, you, let me know. Let me see. Okay, excellent. I got your message, JH. Just saw it. So have a good